Hi, you guys. So the book I read for our Lit Circle was An Abundance of Katherines by John Green. I'd read one of his books before, The Fault in Our Stars, and loved it. And so I knew how good of an author he was, and so I'm pretty familiar with him. And it's also been on my list to read because I've heard really good things about this book, so I wanted to read it. And and I also love math and I want to work with math, so that's why I chose the math category. But so the main character is Colin Singleton. He just graduated from high school and he was actually just dumped by his girlfriend Catherine. And the thing about Colin is that he only dates girls by the name of Catherine, and his most recent breakup was with his 19th girlfriend named Catherine. He's dated 19 girls named Catherine, which is really interesting. But so it's just something about the name Catherine that just really draws him to these girls. And Colin is very, very smart and intelligent, and so much so that he is just kind of wired differently. And so because of that, it doesn't surprise me that he's drawn to girls named Catherine. It's just something about the name and the letters, and not so much based on the girl and her personality, which is interesting, but that's just Colin. So because he just got dumped, he becomes a little depressed, and his parents don't really know how to handle it. And there's days where he literally just lays on his bathroom floor and doesn't eat, sleep, drink, or anything, and he's just like vomiting in the toilet. And so his mom and dad become really worried about him. And he has a best friend, Hassan, who is this little chubby Indian kid, and him and Colin have just been best friends forever. And so Hassan and Colin decide to go on a road trip together over the summer to get Colin's mind off things and try to help him out. And so Colin spends his summer, or he wants to spend his summer developing a theorem based on, it's a theorem to see how two people in a relationship will work and how long they'll be together. He calls the two people, one of them the dumper and the dumpee, and he considers himself in this point in his life as a dumpee because he's just been dumped. And so he uses his past 19 relationships to see if this theorem really works. And it's cool, in the book there are points where they stop and they show you his theorem, and it looks kind of like a parabola, and it, from different stories of his past and previous relationships, they'll stop and they'll show a different part of the parabola and like show you and tell you how it works according to his theorem and how it doesn't, and it's really cool. But so on their road trip, Colin and Hassan stop in Gunshot, Tennessee to see the Archduke Franz Ferdinand's grave because they're bored and they have really nothing else to look at or stop and see. So they stop there, and they go to a convenience store where they meet this young girl who's working behind the counter, Lindsay, and she actually is the tour guide for the grave of the Archduke. And so she takes them on a tour of the grave and brings them back to the convenience store where they actually meet Lindsay's mom, Hollis. And Hollis runs a factory in town. This is a very small town, and one of those towns where everyone knows everyone. And Hollis owns a factory, and she offers the boys to come back to their house for dinner because it's getting late, and she's just very friendly, and they all get along so well, so she asks them to dinner. So they go back to their house, and they all just get along so well that Hollis actually offers the boys to work in her factory over the summer, where she will also give them room and board and let them stay at her house and for free, but also she'll pay them to work there. And one of the parts of the job is to go to different people in the town and interview them and ask them questions about their lives. And so the boys become really, well, they take the offer, and so they're staying there for the summer, and the boys become really involved in the community, and they get to know everyone. I mean, it's a very small town, but they get to know everyone, and everyone becomes really close, and that's just a small part of the story. But so as the summer goes on, Lindsay and Colin become really close. But at the time, during the summer, Lindsay is dating one of the more popular boys in the town, and he's actually the former high school quarterback, and his name is actually Colin as well. And so, but Colin Singleton, the main character, and Lindsay become very good friends, and she helps him with his serum, and she tries to have him think about other factors of the theorem other than just the girls named Catherine. And so they become really close, and Lindsay's friends and Hassan and Colin all kind of hang out and whatnot, and Hassan actually ends up dating one of the like prettier girls. I forget her name actually, but and he becomes really happy, but then he finds out that the girl he's dating, is actually hooking up with Lindsay's boyfriend, Colin, and so everyone kind of just freaks out about that, which is to be expected. And so I'm not going to spoil the ending, but because it's a really good book and I really liked it, and it's one of those books where you kind of know what's going to happen in the end, but the theorem becomes fixed in a way that Colin doesn't really need a girl named Catherine, I should say. So, but that's it. So that's the summary. But so for the physical development, I would say that I mean, Colin they talk about his looks a little bit. They say that he's like a skinny, lanky, kind of scrawny kid, and that and I actually thought this was interesting because of the fact that he's drawn to girls named Catherine. They all look very different, and so they don't really have he doesn't really have a type other than just the name Catherine. So all these girls have looked different and had different personalities, and so I thought that was really interesting. And then they talk about how Hassan is kind of heavier and shorter, and because of that he gets made fun of, and he doesn't really have a lot of friends. And so but I like how the fact that Colin and Hassan, although they're very different looking, they're still best friends, and I feel like that's very common among teenagers these days, where or even just like younger kids, they don't really care about looks so much as I would say even teenagers do. But for the cognitive development, Colin has always been a child prodigy. He is just extremely smart, and he's so smart that what his thing is he loves to anagram, meaning he loves to take a word or a sentence and mix up all the letters in there and create something new, something different. And so because of that, he has always kind of had trouble making friends, and people think he's a little weird because he's so smart. So that leads into the social development also. They even say, like, at the beginning of the book, that he's so psychologically advanced that he was talking and reading before he was even potty trained. And so I thought that was really interesting, that because we're so used to learning that kids, that's one of the first things that kids learn, with like fine motor skill, I guess, or I don't even know, but that's one of the first things we learn in life is to be potty trained. And he's reading the newspaper and talking before he's potty trained. So I thought that was very, very interesting. And as moral development goes, because he's so smart, he has just always had a good head on his shoulders. And there's a quote on I thought this was really interesting, on page 33, and he's just talking about life and everything, and he says, what is the point of being alive if you don't at least try something remarkable? And as an 18 or 19-year-old kid who just graduated high school, I think this is very advanced for someone to say, and especially a boy. You wouldn't expect a boy at this age to be talking about doing something remarkable in life and knowing that they want to make an impact. I just thought that was really interesting. And so, but at the same time, I think the fact that he only dates or is interested in girls named Catherine for most of the book, I kind of find it immature almost, because it's like he's not even giving other people the chance, and he's just stuck in his ways of dating girls named Catherine, which I kind of find immature. And the fact that he can't branch out and look for other possibilities, I think is a little different for someone this age. But like I said, as the book goes on, there's people like Lindsay and Hassan that help him with his theorem and kind of open his eyes to a bigger world other than people named Catherine, which you find out in the end. And so I definitely think it's a really good book for middle schoolers. I would say probably anyone, I would say like 8th grade. I don't know if I would feel comfortable with 6th or 7th graders reading this, just because there's a lot about relationships and learning that kind of type of more than a friendship. I think it's harder for people in 6th and 7th grade to understand so much, but yeah, I definitely really liked it, and I'm glad I read it because it was on my list. And if you guys have the opportunity to, I think you should read it. And that's about it. So